Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Hive's webinar on how to use Hive Automate for better team resourcing and automating your recurring tasks. We are your hosts today. Myself, Susanna Wilson, and my colleague, Michaela Rawlings, will be here to support our automation expert, Brian Holthouse. Please feel free to drop any of your questions into the Q&A section, sorry, in Zoom, and we will answer them at the end of this webinar. Thank you so much. And I'm going to hand it over now to Brian.
All right. Hi, everyone. Let's go over a quick agenda here just to show what we're going to cover today. First, we're going to give a high-level overview of what Hive Automate is. Then we're going to cover just-in-time assignments, creating work right as you need it. Then recurring work, so personal to-do lists, recurring actions that you need, and annual recurring projects. We're going to go through the demo of those workflows, and then we will answer questions after the demo. So Hive Automate. Hive Automate is the integration and automation part of our platform. Within Hive Automate, you can create automated workflows to accomplish tasks that you would otherwise have to do manually. We call these automated workflows recipes, and our recipes run by listening for a specific trigger, either in Hive or in an integrated system, and then the recipe carries out a certain set of actions. Recipes can also be set to run on a specified schedule, which we will cover later in the demo today for the recurring work. With Hive Automate, you can reduce time spent on administrative tasks and increase your team's efficiency. Within Hive Automate, we have a community library full of over 100 pre-built recipes. Some of the workflow examples for these include form automations, applying templates to projects and other actions, integrations with other tools, and custom notifications via email, Teams, or Slack. You can copy these into your workspace, and then they are yours to customize or use for inspiration. And you can always build your own recipes from scratch as well. Just-in-time assignments. So use case for this is to reduce the number of future actions until they're actually needed and needed to be assigned out. How can Hive help? Automation can help set dynamic logic to account for that work as it's happening. And some of the outcomes of this will be up-to-date and accurate planning, increase in transparency of the process, reducing clutter in your workspace, and reduction of manual work through automation. Some of the automations that we're actually going to cover in the demo will be auto-assigning actions by status, auto-creating sub-actions by status, auto-assigning by a placeholder template, auto-set due dates based on the specific type of work, and creating resource assignments for project owners or members when the project actually starts. After that, we're going to cover recurring work. So recurring work really focuses on kind of the to-do list as well as recurring projects. So solving some of that disorganization around tasks that you know you need to do on specific cadences. Automation can help streamline the creation of these actions and projects. And some of the outcomes there are to reduce administrative work for these repeatable tasks, as well as enhance the customization of scheduling that work, and of course, decluttering your workspace. The automations that we will walk through in the demo for recurring work are creating dynamic recurring to-do lists on a daily, weekly, or even monthly cadence, and then recurring projects as well on an annual basis. Let's go ahead and jump into the demo now. If we take a look here, we'll start on the project navigator part of Hive and run through a few examples and some different projects around how we can do just-in-time actions and assignments. And we'll kind of build as we go on some of the premises from previous examples as we work our way up to maybe some more in-depth workflows here. So if we take a look at the first project here, we have a few statuses, and using the premise of kind of a content creation team here, we have a few tasks that we know the team needs to work on. So we can, of course, all collaborate and go in and manually change assignments and add details and move statuses, but we might want to automate that work a little more. Looking at the project from kind of a status view, we might know that even though I got assigned the card to kind of decide what I need to do to start this work, maybe we've got specific team members that are in charge of the different parts of this workflow. So for example, someone who does the planning, someone who might do some of the work, someone to review the work, and we know that that's kind of on a specific basis. So we just want the right person to be assigned the work at the right stage of the process. So if we go ahead and just move a card over into planning, we can see that the assignee has jumped over to Kara. So now Kara will see this on her My Actions view, that she now has work to be done for planning this specific request, really helping automate assigning out who's in charge of what part of the process, so that you're just getting the assignments as you need them without kind of a clutter of seeing things that maybe there's previous dependencies or you just know you don't have to work on yet. We can, of course, keep this going status by status. Now Joseph gets assigned as we move it over. So he's working on the in progress part. Move it over to in review. When he's done, we can see now that Maya is kind of our reviewer for this project. So she gets to make sure that everything's ready for delivery. And we can go ahead and complete it. And on completion, we know that kind of everybody worked on this. So let's go ahead and give everyone credit at the end here, automating that we've all had a part to play in this workflow. So that's really great for the parent card and simple levels of work, just reassigning the task kind of as you work across. But let's move on to a slightly more in-depth example where maybe there's a better hierarchy to achieve here, working through who needs to do what. So same project, same type of actions, but slightly enhanced automation here. So for this next example, we still have kind of the team and who's doing what, but maybe we don't want to change who's actually assigned the parent card. Maybe for this example, I should kind of stay as the person shepherding this along, but as we go, we want new subactions to pop up. So for example, kind of the same workflow as before, where Kara was our person working on planning, but now she actually has her own subaction tied into the parent card here. So I stay assigned, but we want Kara, again, to have kind of the same workflow as the previous example, but now she actually has her own subaction to work with. You'll notice something else as we're going through the subaction creation, that we've actually created the title in kind of a dynamic way. So for example, here you can see that Kara is in charge of planning. We're using the actual status to create the title, so she knows kind of what the work is there, as well as we've concatenated the title of the parent request so that as Kara gets a few of these in this project, she knows right from the title in her My Actions view which request is which without actually having to click into it if they're all kind of contained within the same project here, just dynamically building that title as we go. So as we keep moving along, same premise goes for the scheduling. Kara has been working on her planning. Let's say that there's still a little bit to do there, so it overlapped. We want to go ahead and create that scheduling card. We can, of course, do that. We can keep moving this along. And as we go, every part of the process gets its own subaction created on the parent card to allow for further detail. Joseph needs to add things to the description or attachments or have a more granular level of conversation about this step. He doesn't have to clutter up the parent card if it's not relevant to everyone else. So same premise as kind of the example one, but now everyone has their own space within the request to go in and kind of complete their work. Moving along, Maya, our reviewer, goes ahead and gets her own card here as well. And when we're all complete, we can just mark this complete. So 2 examples of kind of assigning out work as you go, especially related to statuses. So building on that a little bit, let's move into the 3rd example here, where we're still going to create subactions so that everyone kind of has their own space to work and again, track what they're working on. But as we go, it might not always be the best experience for someone like myself, who's just kind of shepherding the work along, to have to actually go in and move the statuses, or maybe Kara's really busy and doesn't want to have to control dealing with the parent card. She's working out of her my actions. She doesn't go into the project as much, and she just wants to finish her work. And the next person in line doesn't want to have to wait for me to move the card along. So we can enhance this automation even further by allowing for listening for the completion of a subaction to actually push the parent action into the next status, therefore creating the next subaction in the workflow. So creating kind of the dynamic waterfall effect of pushing the parent card along as the subactions are getting completed and the work is being done. So now maybe I'm in charge of scheduling again. I've finished that. I know it needs to move to in progress. When that happens, Joseph gets a card. It's created at that moment. It's now on his my actions. He now knows he has something to do. He can, of course, come in and look at the parent card here, but again, allowing him to have kind of the onus here to finish his work. And I only need to periodically check in because I know as the team is finishing their work that the new subactions are getting created, reducing the amount of clutter that's on the card from the beginning and allowing for kind of more that just-in-time creation of the card, as well as the actual assigning out. And then Maya, our reviewer here, I know that once she's taken a look and approved it, that she's going to complete her card and will go ahead and complete the parent. So this is great for kind of allowing that dynamic passing through of work across a project where you just kind of need the parent card to move along through each section, or maybe the different team members who are responsible for a different part of that workflow. Let's move on to the 4th example here and build on kind of everything we've just gone through in the first 3 examples. So we've created parent cards and everyone's kind of gotten their individual work that they need to achieve. But sometimes workflows aren't always that simple, right? You've got a team working on things, but maybe the type of work also dictates who needs to be doing what. And on top of that, what steps actually need to happen. And if you like keeping everything kind of in one project, you might not want to have a bunch of different statuses that all cater to a specific type of work, but you do know that as it moves through, you want different subactions created. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use a form to create the work here. In our last webinar, we went over some form automation and intake project workflows. So definitely check that out if you haven't seen that video on our YouTube channel. But let's go ahead and submit a form here. We'll keep it pretty simple. Let's just call this a short video request for customer C. Pick a label that it's a video. We need a video for our YouTube channel. Go ahead and submit the work. View the request. And now we've got some of the details around this request and the work that needs to be done. Again, auto applied the label and just specifics around what's going on here. Now, in this example, we have a bunch of requests that all are sitting kind of in the unstarted section. But as we move along, we need to be able to kind of dynamically assign out that work. So similar to the first three examples where we're kind of creating the cards and assigning them dynamically as we go. But with this one, also taking into account two extra pieces of information. So first off is that this is a video request, which is obviously going to be different than something like a request for a post or web page design. So when we move into planning, we actually have a specific type of subaction that needs to be created because a storyboard subaction in planning doesn't make sense for a post request. That only makes sense for a video request. So we can actually listen for the specific labels that are on the card to kind of dynamically set what those are. You'll also notice that the parent card assignee, as well as the subaction that was created, are actually set assigned to placeholders. So instead of choosing for each specific project who your project manager is and the videographer, for example, here for a video request at the recipe level, you can actually build the recipes dynamically to apply templates and placeholder assignments so that the recipe can listen and be valid for all the projects in your workspace or as many projects as you want, allowing at the project level to set those assignees. So for example, we'll go ahead and assign this out, keep myself as the project manager, and let's assign videographer to Alice. So now we know as we're moving along that every time a project manager is needed, I'm going to automatically get that assignment and Alice is in charge of our videos. We can keep moving along. And once we go into in progress here, we'll notice that we have a few more actions that pop up that are specific to that type of work. So maybe we have a script review and actually recording the video. At this point in the process, maybe during the initial planning, we didn't really know when this would get scheduled or when we might expect this to be delivered. But we want to build kind of dynamic due dates once we've actually started the work. So just to give kind of a templatized approach to specific pieces of the work, we can actually use the date and time that we've moved the parent card to start that process. So you'll notice that the first part of this, we've said started today because I just moved it over. And we've set some expectations around the due dates for Alice on each of these steps that also dictate kind of the delivery of this parent card. So again, creating cards when they're needed, but also creating cards that are dynamic based on the type of person or role that needs to do that work, as well as dynamically creating those due dates and schedule based on when you actually moved it. Sometimes setting a due date at the very beginning is great, but you can't always make that due date because you haven't started the work yet. And this can help kind of dynamically set those expectations when you actually move the card. So you don't have to think about setting those up specifically and manually every single time. Now, just to kind of show how those placeholders are helpful, let's say we have a request for a few different things on that parent card. When I move that over, I'm already the project manager for this project. So the recipe doesn't need to change anything. It already knows that that's me, as well as any further requests for video. Alice is in charge of that here. So we have some other requests. We haven't assigned a writer. Let's just say that that's George, and designer. Let's do Kara. Same thing applies here for specific subactions that are created based on the type of work. And as we move this along, we also get specific subactions created, populated, and due dates set for each of those type of requests for the specific role that needs to accomplish them, giving me the ability to automate kind of what those are created and not having to assign that work out specifically for every request every time. All I have to do is move the card into that step and it automatically populates all of this work. So moving along here as we go, we can keep moving cards along, and as work is getting done, we can also change the parent card assignee, to example, to a reviewer here. And let's go ahead and give Maya her job back from the other projects here. So now any work that gets moved into review, Maya gets automatically assigned. I get taken off because I'm done from a project management standpoint for her to go ahead and take a look at the work. So just to summarize kind of the four examples here, assigning work based on a specific status. We can also create subactions and assign the subactions based on a specific status in a project. We can also move the cards along within the project based on the completion of subactions, so that once one section of the work is done, the next can begin and be automatically assigned out as the previous examples, as well as we can accommodate for one recipe listening across multiple projects using placeholders to dynamically set the role that needs to accomplish that work, as well as take into account form submissions, intake processes, labels for specific types of requests, and dynamically build those cards out as you move along through the process. Okay, let's move on to our next automation within the just-in-time example. Let's say that you have a full project and you are taking a look at the project and you're not sure who is going to be doing what just yet. We're kind of planning this. We're not even sure we're going to go ahead with this just yet. So we don't necessarily, in resourcing, want to start allocating work out for our users. If one, we don't know the project is going to happen. We don't know when necessarily yet it's going to be kicked off. And right now we just kind of have an idea of who's doing what on work that's already assigned out. But we go back to the project here and we say, okay, we have a lot of subactions and maybe we've gone through the process here of doing some placeholders or who we think is going to be doing the work. And that's all well and good, except for sometimes in a project, there's just a certain level of admin work that you end up getting kind of signed up for being a part of the project. Maybe the project owner or project manager is doing a little bit more, but even just people working on some of these efforts, if your estimates and due dates are based off that specific type of work, The admin level type of work might just take up a specific amount of part of your day, and you don't really care to get that granular about what's done during that time. So now that we've decided to kick this work off, we go into the project overview, and I can go into the status and say, this project is now kicked off, it's on track, and I'm going to go ahead and comment that this is probably a regular amount of admin work for duration of the project. Once I've gone ahead and kicked the project off, moved it into a specific status, we can also automate the creation of those resource assignments. You'll see now that every member of that project actually has a specific resource assignment that was automatically created with a specified amount of time that they will be spending per day on those admin tasks, as well as a specific duration tied to the length of that project based on its due date at that moment. So for example, Alice and Anna and other regular members of the project, for this example, have decided that it's a half hour a day of some of that admin work. But myself as the project manager, I'm doing a little more of that coordination and less of the actual assignments. So maybe I gave myself 2 hours a day towards this project to make sure everything's running on schedule. And of course, these can be set up differently or dynamically, but that was the kind of example to walk through here, is that we can listen for specific updates in the project, whether that's the status update or a specific action card to denote that the project has kicked off. And we don't want to have to go through and make everybody create these resource assignments. We can do that automatically. So that concludes the first section of the just-in-time resourcing and assignment creation. Let's move on to the kind of personal to-do list and or recurring tasks. So if we jump back into our project navigator here, we have, obviously a lot of projects either dealing with specific campaigns or types of work that you might expect. But we also have the concept of sharing is seeing here at Hive, and you can create personal projects that other people don't have visibility into. So for example, here, I've created my own project to organize my personal to-do list, just so I can keep all of those tasks kind of tidied up and in a specific place. So I always know for recurring actions, that's where these are going to pop up. You can, of course, set these as well to show up in specific projects across different assignees or teams. But for this example for today, we'll keep it simple with kind of a personal to-do list. So let's jump into that project. So taking a look here, this is really great. I've done all my work. I don't have anything else to do. So for this example, we're going to cover recurring work. So just to kind of get ahead of this, obviously going to time travel a little bit here in the webinar to imagine as we're moving through specific time cadences, because these can be set to specific schedules. So for example, let's start off with kind of daily tasks. Let's say that we want automations to run every Monday. I have a specific set of tasks that I need to achieve. So Monday morning rolls around, I show up to work, and I now have a certain set of actions that are assigned out to me, and they've shown up and are due on the same day, because I don't care about starting these until Monday morning, but they're also due kind of end of day Monday, because I need to make sure that this is the cadence that these things get done. So just as some examples here, respond to weekend emails, organize my notes, send customer touchpoint emails. Again, kind of setting up that recurring workflow such that not only are they due at specific cadences, but also only pop up on your to-do list exactly when you want them to. So of course, we can pay attention to the specific day of the week. So for daily examples, this could run every day, but let's say Wednesday rolls around and we have a different set of actions. Let's just go ahead and assume that I got everything done on Monday. We can go ahead and close those out. And of course, it'll close out all the Monday tasks once the sub actions are done. So same premise here. Now it's Wednesday. I've got kind of my Wednesday tasks that pop up just in time for me to do them on Wednesday. Because maybe I can't do these things until that specific day of the week, or that's just when those things need to go out. So we'll leave those up for a second here and kind of move along with the daily example here. And let's say it's Friday and I have some other tasks that need to be accomplished. Of course, we can do the same premise depending on the day of the week and have those templatized. So you don't even have to edit them in the recipe. You can change them via an action card template, but really help organize what the tasks are that need to show up on that daily basis, specific to you and your workflow without cluttering up your My Actions view or anyone else's for that matter in kind of an individual to-do list sort of way. So moving on from daily, we can set these recipes to lots of different types of schedules. We can, of course, also account for weekly tasks. So let's say that Monday morning rolls around and you have a weekly set of tasks. Now, before we had set these up to show up and be due on the same day. We can, of course, set these due dates to be very dynamic based on the day that the recipe actually runs. So for example, here, I've got these showed up on the 19th. So if that was a Monday, due date would have been four days ahead. So kind of due at the end of the week, just a list of tasks that I know that I need to accomplish every week. So kind of setting those due dates, maybe allowing me to just kind of check in throughout the week on a specific type of work that I need to accomplish. Now, of course, if we can do daily and weekly, we can also do monthly tasks. And I'll do these just slightly different. So let's say we have a specific day of the month that we know we want these monthly tasks to pop up on. And when that happens, we want the due date to dynamically run as the end of the month. But we can also accommodate here where we don't set specific due dates at the sub-action level, because maybe I don't really know when these are all going to get done, or just depending on my own schedule and workload, when I'm going to get to these things throughout the month, because a month is kind of a long period of time. And just put due dates kind of at the top so I can periodically check in on these and accomplish them. What this does is if I go over to my actions, it can help specify within that project of your personal to-do list which actions actually need to show up as a sub-action level on your to-do list. These are a little more urgent as they are my daily tasks as well as my weekly. But the monthly tasks, I just want to know that they're there. I don't need to see that I have a dozen or 2 dozen specific things I need to accomplish every month, just because I don't want that to clutter up here. So just showing a couple different examples around how that could be shown. And of course, you can always click in and see what that checklist is for you to do. So let's move on to projects with the recurring recipes here. So thinking about daily tasks, weekly tasks, those are really great to automate, but you also do them quite often. So you might remember that you need to do those things anyway, automating them just really helps kind of organize your thoughts and make sure that you've accomplished them and keep track, right? But with projects, they might be a little longer term, and they might also be something that you forget if they need to happen every year, right? I know that I wouldn't remember exactly on January 1st to kick off specific projects, or if I needed to have a biannual project, or something every 3 months, for example. It's just easier to set it to a schedule so that it just pops up in our workspace, and the team now knows that's something we need to accomplish. So the same premise holds for the timeline rolling around. So for example here, let's say January 1 comes around and we have an annual OKR tracking project that we need to kick off so that we can all build this out. And we know that that happens at the first of every year. We don't have to wait around for someone to build it. We can templatize these projects and also have them show up and be due on dynamic dates. So for example, this is kind of an annual project. So it shows up at the beginning of the year and also might be due at the end of the year. But what if we don't have the specific timeline that matches up with the cadence? We can also do shorter term projects. For example, like an annual company trip. It needs to be planned in January every year. So pops up beginning of January, gives us a due date, templatized again with some specific subactions, what needs to be accomplished. And of course, due dates, estimates, assignees can all be templatized as well. That concludes the front end portion of the demo, talking about the just-in-time action creation, as well as assigning out work, creating resource assignments on an automated fashion from a project when it gets kicked off, as well as covering easy ways to organize your personal to-do list on a daily, weekly, or monthly cadence, as well as creating annual projects for not just yourself, but the whole workspace for your team and planning ahead. So let's take a quick look at Hive Automate itself, just to give a quick overview here. When you click into Hive Automate, you'll be brought to the community library that I spoke about earlier with a lot of pre-built recipes that you can copy into your workspace. Something else that you can do while searching is if you were to search for webinar, you'll see that the recipes we've used today, as well as recipes from previous webinars, will filter down so that you can use this video and pick specific recipes to copy into your workspace, just to help you find those workflows. I'll cover quickly a couple of these recipes as well. If we go into my recipes, here are some of the recipes that we covered today for the recurring workflows. If we have kind of that yearly project, for example, setting a trigger to a schedule of every 12 months, again, being able to even pick the time of day and day of the month, and simply going in and creating the projects, utilizing the templates that might be applicable for those workflows. Similar recipes around the weekly tasks, where trigger every specific amount of weeks, again, Monday at a specific time, creating an action with a specific template that has kind of that day and duration, which once you set up the recipe again, you can just change the actual action template itself and allow for someone on the front end to change those without having to build the recipe differently each time. We can get a little more dynamic as well. You could set up the same recipe individually for each day of the week, or we can dynamically take into account what day of the week it is. So for example, we just want this recipe to run every day, and we can pick day of the week one starting with Monday, going all the way around to Sunday, creating specific actions in the same recipe. So just two different ways to set up these recurring tasks, depending on the level of kind of dynamic building that you want to occur, or any other automations that you want to build into the recipe along with the creation of those tasks. We'll take a look quickly at the just-in-time examples as well. So looking at that first project where we wanted to account for specific statuses in the projects and reassigning, we can simply listen for updated statuses to an action card. You can cater these down to specific projects if you want, or listen across all the projects in your workspace, as well as picking the specific status to do a specific update. So for example, here, if we remember, when it became a review, we wanted to assign it to Maya. Same goes for the other statuses. And we can, of course, keep building here and getting more and more granular with listening for those actions being updated and picking specific labels, the specific type of work, creating actions with specific templates, and working our way through the complexity levels from the first example all the way to that fourth example. So how do you access Hive Automate? We currently offer a 14-day free trial of Hive Automate, and you can enable it within the apps section of your workspace. Hive Automate add-on is $5 per user per month and includes 500 automation tasks per month. This is included in the enterprise licenses as well. We offer professional services, and if you do need larger task buckets, we do offer some tiered pricing there, and you can reach out to your account manager to discuss further. Or you can reach out to marketing@hive.com with any further questions, or if you'd like to schedule a follow-up demo with one of our collaboration consultants.
Thank you so much, Brian.
Yeah,